એ લોકોને તો બહુ જ ગમે છે.
See, we can have speakers from all over the world without spending a single rupee. No traveling, no hotel booking, no club booking, no food. We save on food also. we save our time. We save our time traveling to GIC and come back and traffic and parking and all that. Plus, GIC માં જ્યારે હોય ત્યારે 150 થી 200 લોકો કરે ને આમાં કદાચ 500 ને 1000 લોકો પણ આવી શકે. Sitting at home. So this is a good thing. We should continue.
Yes, I think it has great potential.
And social and physical distance રાખવાનું છે, પણ we can continue that for some time.
એક રેસિડેન્ટ આપણે કમિટી બનાવી દઈએ, વેબિનાર કમિટી.
એ તો બની જ ગઈ છે. બની જ ગઈ છે.
Yes, it's so. Okay, good.
બની જ ગઈ છે.
Undoubtedly યશ તો છે જ એમાં.
Yash is always there. He is so sincere.
Actually,
everybody loves him.
Oh yes, really.
Actually આપણે શું કરીએ છે કે પ્રવીણભાઈ વેબિનાર કરીશું અને વેબિનારનું પ્રેઝન્ટેશન લાઈવ આપણા GICA ના ગજ્જર હોલમાં પ્રોજેક્ટર પર બી ચાલુ હશે.
Yes.
Oh, very good.
એટલે જે મિત્રોને આપણે GICA આવવું હોય, બરાબર છે, સોશિયલ એજ્યુકેશન માટે ડિનર લેવું હોય, એમ સમજો તો એ લોકો GICA આવશે અને આપણા મોટા સ્ક્રીન ઉપર જ વેબિનાર માં પાર્ટિસિપેન્ટ થશે, ક્વેશ્ચન આન્સર બી કરી શકશે.
રાઈટ, ગુડ આઈડિયા.
એટલે એક્રોસ ધ વર્લ્ડ પાર્ટિસિપેશન બી મળે, સ્પીકર બી મળે અને આપણી જે કોર વસ્તુ છે કે આપણે મહિનામાં 1-2 વખત ભેગા થઈએ છીએ, જે ખરેખર સોશિયલ ઇન્ટિગ્રેશન આપણે જરૂરી છે, એટલે એ બી કરી શકીશું.
ગુડ આઈડિયા.
એ સેટ થઈ ગયું છે, હવે સરકાર મંજૂરી આપે ને ભેગા થવાની એટલે ચાલુ કરી નાખે.
With all the precautions.
Alternate Saturday fix છે.
અચ્છા, ઓકે, ગુડ આઈડિયા. થોડા પ્રિકોશન્સ લેવા પડશે. We have to do that. Yes.
હા, એ તો હવે કેવી રીતની શું છૂટછાટ મળે છે, શું છે.
હા, let's see. Good. So Rajeev, Kathpalia, all ready?
I am all set. Anytime.
Okay. How is Radhika, Kabir?
All well here.
You are at home or office?
I am at home. Office will start from Monday.
Monday, okay. 1st of June. Good.
We are following all lockdown protocols. No, but people have been working.
You should.
From home. Online, people have been working anyways.
Yes.
Your office is open कि अभी बंद है?
In these 6 days, I went for 3 days. Because sites are not open now, so
all closed.
There is no workload in the office.
नहीं हो रहा, sites तो काफी देर के लिए बंद रहेंगे because all the labor has gone away. So it is going to be a problem for, I think, at least Gujarat and Maharashtra is going to be a major problem of people opening up. I don't know what you think, but my sense is that
is true. Because see, I'll tell you, देखो, हमने गुजरात में लेबर को वापस लाने के लिए एक भी ट्रेन नहीं चली पूरे इंडिया से, और गुजरात से बाहर जाने के लिए there were hundreds of trains sending more than 12 lakh laborers to other states. So इतने लोग तो गुजरात से चले गए अभी, इतने लेबर्स तो कितने वापस आएंगे, we don't know how many will come back and when.
I think in a month they will come back. They will start coming back.
I know. I read it somewhere because they are missing.
Because they need money, na. उनको भी पैसा
because
चाहिए. For survival, they need money.
Yes, and the work they get in Gujarat, they don't get anywhere else.
Exactly.
But you think after the experience of this, very big hardship that they faced, a lot of them did. Train में तो चले गए तो अच्छा है, पर जो पहले गए, you think they'll come back?
That's right, but when the question comes, but when it's a question of money, they have to earn
survival.
something.
No, but yes, because they don't have work there.
अभी लेके you will see that UP, Bihar वगैरह में lot more development will take place, and यहाँ पर they will hesitate to come back, especially till after the monsoon. अभी monsoon आएगा, monsoon में तो फिर लेके वैसे ही slow down हो जाता है, तो लेके planting भी होएगा. अभी थोड़ा टाइम लगेगा, एक महीने में नहीं.
थोड़ा टाइम लगेगा.
दिवाली till Diwali it will be uncertain.
एक आध महीने में आने का शुरू तो हो जाएगा. डेफिनेटली एक साथ तो कोई नहीं आएगा, but they will start coming back.
દિવાળી પછી ચાલુ છે તો બેસ્ટ કહેવાય. ઇઝ વેરી ગુડ.
હા, બેસ્ટ કહેવાય. એબ્સોલ્યુટલી.
તુને ઓલું ચાલુ થયા તો એક્સલન્ટ.
યસ ધેટ્સ રાઈટ.
પર આ ફાઇનાન્શિયલ સિચ્યુએશન માં તમે લાગે છે કે ચાલુ થાય?
કરવું પડશે ને સર. We have to start it.
Rajeev, you speak Gujarati so well. I never heard it. The first time I'm hearing Gujarati from you.
I think it is 7. Shall we start?
We should.
Yes.
We should make it a practice to make particular time. How many people are there right now? Online?
Right now on Zoom there are about 68, and we are also live on YouTube and Facebook also. So I don't know exactly count on that platforms. But here we have approximately.
Fine.
Yeah. Good evening everyone, and welcome to this 14th webinar organized by the Gujarat Institute of Civil Engineers and Architects on subject the ideal city campus design by our speaker Shri Architect Rajeev Kathpalia ji, and the moderator for the session will be Architect Pravin Patel. So now I will request President GICA Shri KC Patel to deliver the welcome address.
Thank you. Yes. Good evening everyone. I would to like welcome all member of GICA guest, our speaker Architect Rajeev Kathpalia, and moderator of the session Architect Pravin Patel for this 14th webinar on the ideal city campus design organized by Architectural Forum Committee of the Gujarat Institute of Civil Engineers and Architects. An ideal city is a concept of a plan for the city that has been conceived in the accordance with particularly rational or moral objective. The ideal nature of such a city may encompass the moral, spiritual, and juridical qualities of the citizenship, as well as the way in which these are the rationalized thought. Urban structure include building, street layout, etc. So today Architect Rajeev Kathpalia will deliver a talk regarding what an ideal city should be adopting campus design concept. Hence, I believe this webinar will provide everyone of you with very useful insights. So I now request Yash to continue further proceeding. Over to Yash.
Yeah, thank you sir for your welcome address. And now before I hand it over to Architect Pravin Patel, who is a moderator of the session, to establish the to set the context for the discussion, as well as to introduce Architect Rajeev Kathpalia. So before I hand it over to him, I will just give a brief introduction of Architect Pravin Patel. So Architect Pravin Patel is done his architecture from SEPT University, Ahmedabad, and he's practicing as an architect and interior designer since 1982. And he works for architecture and interior design projects across various domains like healthcare, residential, commercial, industrial, institutional, religious, hospitality, and recreational. And he has also made various publications in books, magazines, newsletters, and he has also given interviews to a wide range of media houses. And he has traveled to lot many countries. I have not counted, but it seems to be about 24 countries. So he has a vast experience and vast vision of various countries together. And last but not the least, but he's also chairman of the Architectural Forum Committee at GICA. So now I will like to hand over to Architect Pravin Patel to take further proceedings.
Thank you.
What you
is recording on? Recording is on?
Yes. Yeah, so it automatically gets recorded on YouTube.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, President KC Patel, for having me here. Thank you, Yash Majeethia, for introduction. Thank you and welcome, Architect Rajeev Kathpalia. Welcome to all the participants of today's webinar. Congratulations and best wishes to new managing committees of GICEA and SSS from all of us. We were trying to have Architect Rajeev Kathpalia's presentation since very long. Previous date for this presentation was 27th March 2020. But because of lockdown, we had to postpone it. Subject of today's webinar is the ideal city campus design. I am sure we will have very interesting presentation from Architect Rajeev Kathpalia. Please send your questions and he will reply after his presentation. I will give his brief introduction before he starts the presentation. I am happy to introduce the gentleman, Architect Rajeev Kathpalia. He is son-in-law of our own respected Architect B.B. Doshi sir and husband of my classmate at School of Architecture, SEPT, Architect Radhika Doshi Kathpalia. Architect Rajeev Kathpalia is a partner at Vastu Shilpa Consultants or VSC, the multidisciplinary practice founded in 1955, before my birth, by the Pritzker laureate Balkrishna Doshi. Kathpalia's work integrates frugal and environmentally responsible strategies to create inclusive habitats for people. Renowned for his institutional designs, he has won several national and international competitions for the Indian Institute of Technology, Indian Institute of Management, and the Nalanda University, among others. Designing across a range of scales, Kathpalia's practice encompasses regional and city plans, institutional campuses, individual buildings, and even furniture. His net zero approach to campus design, which integrates architecture, landscape, ecology, energy generation, and management, both human and mechanical, while creating an equitable and inclusive social milieu, has set new benchmarks for sustainability and innovation. Kathpalia serves as a trustee and former director of the Vastu Shilpa Foundation, a research-based non-profit charitable trust. The organization creates environmental and habitat designs for the poor, working extensively in informal settlements to create low-cost housing. He also runs the Foundation's International Habitat Studio program, which brings together students from across India and around the globe. He was recognized with the Prime Minister's Award for Innovative Urban Design for his pioneering advocacy and design work on the inner city of Hyderabad within the Charminan precinct. Kathpalia earned his bachelor's degree in architecture from the Chandigarh College of Architecture and Master of Architecture and Urban Design from Washington University. For the past 30 years, he has also taught as a university professor, lecturing extensively in India and abroad, and receiving several honors and awards. He was conferred the award for distinction in architecture by Washington University, USA for 2019. In November 2019, he was made honorary professor at the Jiao Tong Liverpool University in Suzhou, China. Here I present Architect Kathpalia. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Pravin, for such a eloquent, long introduction. I think it is great. It's a great honor and a privilege for me to be with you this evening, with all of you. Though the medium is limiting in the sense that you can only see one or two people, and soon I'll be seeing only my screen, what I'm presenting. But it also gives the opportunity to actually many more people to connect up, which would not happen in normal circumstances. So I look forward to this. And I give my thanks to the President, Shri K.C. Patel, and to the Secretary, Apurva, for allowing me this opportunity. So with that, I will begin. I'll share my screen contents, and please acknowledge that you can see the screen. Yeah, can you see the screen?
Yes,
yeah,
we can see.
Okay.
Please go ahead.
You hear me clearly?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So I think Mr. Patel quite eloquently spoke about what is an ideal city. And the idea of the ideal city begins from the Renaissance, actually, when the whole idea that man could control his environment and could make the ideal city so that all the things that man indulged in could be taken care of in a rational, scientific, or the beginnings of science and art as such. And from that, these paintings came about showing an ideal city. This is not an actual city. And we also know that though ideal cities are representations, in actual fact, the city is a very messy affair. So we begin with ideas and values that it incorporates, and then they start changing and taking a life of their own. And I think that is what a city should be able to do. So the ideal city is also to sort of provoke you into thinking what is an ideal and what is actual reality. And between the two, how do we bridge this gap? In, I'm talking only about campuses this evening because otherwise there'll be a very long talk. But we are involved at all scales, as Pravin mentioned very kindly, that we are involved with city planning, large-scale master plans, urban design projects, as well as campuses. I focus on campuses because I think campuses in some ways are a crucible of what could be upscaled and made into cities. And I'll come to that as I share with you the kinds of campuses we are doing. My first campus was in 2004. Since that was the first independent campus that I was doing, and it was quite a challenge. And this was a private university, which I'll be showing you shortly. And from that start in 2012 and 2013, between 2011 and 2013, we actually took part in several competitions. So after that first taste of what a campus design entailed, we took part in several national competitions and one international competition also. And in those 2 years, we won 5 of them, and all of them got built, which was the most unusual part, that they're all either being built, or, they're in various stages of completion, or they've already been occupied, or they're still carrying on at the moment. Campuses take a long time. You'd be surprised of, 15 years, 20 years, and carrying on, adding buildings, carrying on with changing clients, vice chancellors change, directors change. If they're government-based, these things, then a whole lot of faculty also changes. A lot of things keep happening, and through all this, you hold on to your ideal values, and yet you allow for circumstantial changes to take place. And so your plans must really reflect that. Now, from that ideal image, I show you Udaipur, because I think Udaipur is a fascinating thing. There are some key buildings like that. You see the palace out here, you see the Lake Palace, and you see certain other this thing, and the rest sort of fits in. And then the topography, the watershed, the way the hills are, and the way the water flows from them, all of them help to make it the kind of place it is. And all of us love the place. We enjoy being in the streets and alleys and shopping out there, going to the temples out there. And then suddenly you come to the lake and it opens up and the horizon opens up. And in the evenings and early mornings, those are wonderful places to be in. And they make great public spaces. So this is the lessons that I have learned over the time that I've been working on all these campuses and the visits to all these various places. Of course, we are fortunate that we are also, doing the IIM Udaipur. So that was I'll come to that in detail as we go along. So obviously, Udaipur is as I call it, a benchmark in some ways. And below that is, of course, our own very own Sarkhej Rosa. And Sarkhej Rosa, as you all know, when it used to fill up with water, now it rarely does, but when it used to be this wonderful place, and still is a wonderful place even when the water is not there, where there are public things and there are very specific religious things out there. So the other reason I show you both these pictures is that one of the fascinations that I have picked up is that public space and water and the water's edge of the land are things that I have tried to interweave into the projects that we have done to create water. And, it's strange. All these water bodies that you're seeing, these are all man-made. I mean, Udaipur is a city of 5 lakes, but all of them are man-made lakes. None of them are natural lakes. They were natural topographical locations. But to dam it and to make sure that there is water collected in it from the various streams that come into it and the various watersheds, and then to build a city so that the water stays out there around it, I think that is a fantastic idea. From 1360, then when Pichola was made, to now, these are all man-made things. So my question is that why have we forgotten this, and could we bring this back? So these are the recent projects. You will see out here, Flame University, which is now an 80 acres campus. There is Raksha Shakti University, which is slightly out of Ahmedabad. It's about an hour and a half from here, which is another 180 acres. There is IIM Udaipur, which is 290 acres. There is Nalanda University in Rajgir, which is 455 acres. And last, I'll come to the Smriti Memorial and Museum in Bhuj, which is 470 acres. Also connected to water and its collection, all of them, and also building spaces for people within that, public spaces. Now, just to give you a sense of scale, this is a block of 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer. You can look at Jaipur, you can look at Udaipur, Ahmedabad, the walled city part, Pune, again the heart of the medieval quarter, and you can see cities from Florence, Bern in Switzerland, Munich in Germany, and Paris at the same scale. And then I've put campuses in between just to give you the idea. And some of these campuses fit into this 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer, and the others, which is about 250 acres, actually, 254 acres to be precise, and others which are even larger and flow beyond this. So just to give you a sense of scale of what one is dealing with. So these are cities in a sense. And then, of course, we imagine that these campuses will be in isolation because they're mostly in remote places away from the city, because that's where you can get land cheaply. But what happens once you get this land? Slowly, this university comes in, and as I call it, the pebble in the pond effect takes place. You drop in a pebble into a pond, and these things that flow out from it start creating points of interest, and all the land values around go up. So if you look at our very own IIM in Ahmedabad, Vastrapur was a small village. When the IIM came in, it seeded the place, and after that, the whole city grew around it, and now it's very much part of the city. And so this drawing actually shows how the cities in these places would actually encroach around this, and how these campuses could be the anchors of new cities, or new smart cities, as I call them. When we talk about smart cities, it's not only about, programming and getting sensors and things, but or talking about sustainability in a one-sided way, but it is also about getting smart people together. And if walls were taken off from all these campuses, and in fact, we design our campuses with many gates so that the gates could be kept open if the circumstances allow that over time, and the authorities that run and believe in those ideas, these become the focuses of the hearts of this city that grows around it. All these campuses are in very different locations, as you saw, from Bihar in the east to the west in Pune, to if you look at land in Rajgir in Bihar for Nalanda, it's an absolutely flat land. It rains very heavily, 1200 mm. It rains a lot. It floods, in fact. So there you have to worry about flooding and collecting water. On the other side, if you take something like Udaipur, where there is no water at all, you can't even do a bore in the area that the campus is, because there is absolutely no groundwater available out there. You have to make all your water arrangements. And so we also started like Udaipur with 5 lakes, which we have interconnected and made them. And I'll show those to you as we go along. And the terrain is hilly, absolutely rocky terrain. If you were to do a slope analysis, you would say you can't build out here, but then you have to build. So how do you build in places like this? How do you connect hills? How do you make them so that people can walk even with somebody who's physically challenged can walk comfortably? And so these were the challenges that we faced. So this first campus, as I said, started in 2004. As a matter of fact, the actual construction started in 2005. And now it's a flourishing campus for the past 15 years. It has just about over 1,000 students at the moment. It started with this idea of Oxford and Cambridge. Now, our client, who is a friend of ours, this is a private university, came to us and he said that, I have a senior partner who wants to invest some money, and not invest money, sorry, to give back to society. He wants to be a philanthropist, wants to give back to society because he's made so much money. And so he wants to do a Jain temple. And so our friend then told him that instead of doing a temple, why don't you do a Institute of Higher Learning? And so this gentleman said, well, find out what we can do. So our friend came to us and said that you guys have designed IIMs, why don't you tell us how to do an IIM? And we took him, we said, the government does IIMs, but if you want to do a private thing, then let's take you to the IIM here. And we met with the faculty here and they had a seminar for him. And from that, there were scientists, there were teachers, there were various other academicians, etc. They all came together and said, if you want to do a good institute, you need very good people to come to that. And for that, you need to actually focus on pre-graduate students rather than postgraduate students. So the idea was born of the first liberal education university in the country. Now, of course, there are several, but that was the first. FLAME, it stands for actually Foundation for Liberal and Management Education, was the first liberal education university. And it was starting with some 7 acres initially. Then we convinced them to buy some more. And eventually it was about 25 acres. Then over time, it kept on growing. And I'll come to that again. But it sits in a wonderful valley. You see this image out here, the lower image of this beautiful valley. Now it's all a golf course. You can see how that land has changed into this golf course. And at the end of it, if you see the smaller slide in this, you see this part. For this, we took our client to various educational institutions. We took him to Oxford, we took him to Cambridge, we had seminars there for him, arranged for him out there. And we said that really education doesn't take place in the classroom. It takes place outside the classroom, in your encounters. So if you have a small city, a small town, where there are people of like-minded things, and of course also not so like-minded, but there are bookshops, there are coffee shops, there are restaurants and things like that. People will keep learning from all of these places and exchanges will take place. And they will not necessarily happen only in the classroom. So that's how the land acquisition process took place. And they first managed to acquire 500 acres, now then 1,200 became Knowledge City, which is another project altogether, which I'm not getting into, but I'll talk on the campus. So this was the first 25 acres. It was some odd piece shape of land like this. Then some more pieces of land got added, 53 acres, and then 82 acres as of today. And so that land translates into a plan like this. So you can imagine this plan kept on expanding. And with that, it must always look like a cohesive plan, as if it was planned from day one, though it's not been planned from day one. So that's, I think, the other beauty about working on the ideal city plans is that what is it that you hold and what is it that you allow to change, how the peripheries keep on changing, land parcels which are not there get things, and how can you keep working with the central idea. So our central idea was very simple. Our central idea was to have a spine out here, and around that the housing happening. And from this spine, there were a liberal education program also meant that you had almost 40 choices for students to take up. So there was, you could do humanities, sciences, philosophy, rhetoric, you could do all kinds of subjects. And in your first 2 years, you did all these subjects and you got an idea, because very often what would happen is that in our countries, children have to make a decision very early on. They will become engineering stream, doctor stream, medical stream, or commerce stream, and then they're fixed for life, and very often they can't change. Here, the idea was that we will have a 4-year undergraduate program. In that undergraduate program, you can, first 2 years, you experience all these various things and see where your aptitude really lies. And after that, you go on to what you want to major in and then minor in. And you could do any kind of combination. You could do mathematics and music for that matter. So these combinations was something that was very important. So we said we'll make a bazaar of knowledge. These laboratories, classrooms, various these things were put all across it. This spine, which is about 120 meters, starting from a plaza that you see at one end where the library and the dining hall are, goes and ends, it's on a hill. So it climbs up almost 17 meters. And those 17 meters is the spine with ramps, which are very gentle, 1 in 20. There are steps that climb up. There's landscape that comes in. And each one is a little building by itself. So you could do this easily over time, over phases. Construction could be done by many contractors or one contractor as time goes by. And the last building that you see was added very recently, which is the administration. And it comes where there's another road. So we ended this spine from the plaza to an amphitheater, which sits under this and which is used. And there's a bridge over this whole 2 buildings, which is a student lounge, which is open 24/7. And on the other side of the plaza is the library. Let me see if I can get a marker. Yeah. Here's the library and here's the administration. And this is the spine that goes through. So, and then these are various science labs, music labs, performing arts, art labs, science labs, etc. So all of these are connected together. This is how it started. The land, as I said, is sloping. And one of the things I also wanted to share with you was the fact that I like to sketch out things. So this is how the land was. And I was looking at a series of plinths that climb up the hill towards this, from making precast furniture to the library buildings to the system of construction of portals that could be put together. N.K. Shah and Anil were the structural engineers. And I must say, we worked out this wonderful system where you do a portal, which is a standardized size of spanning across the span. And anything from 7 meters to almost 24 meters we have spanned using the same system by changing slight thicknesses and changing the steel in it. And they look almost the same. So your shuttering and all can be repeated. So this is the kind of things that we started conceiving. And you can see some of the buildings like this is the dining hall. And the other thing that I had was that, do we need to have a building that looks like a building, or it's a part of a hill with steps going up and there are skylights that light comes in a hill, so that you connect back all the time to the kind of topography that is there. And so these were some of the ideas that one started with. This is what it looks like today when you arrive there. You have this vast cricket field, beautiful cricket field. And then the university sort of spreads up and the trees have grown in. And since all the buildings are disaggregated, the scale is rather nice and comfortable. The idea is that you have such a scenic spot, and then if you are always in buildings and you never go out, then what's the point? So the idea was that you have to walk. And part of the learning is in the walking, that when you walk, you encounter, you meet somebody. There are 5 campuses, 5 cafes on this campus. Take a cup of tea or have a coffee with somebody, talk to them, maybe a teacher, maybe a peer who's there, and enjoy the views that are there of the hills around. Don't forget there are wonderful views of the hills. And, all of these things were the ways that we worked towards this. So this is how, when you enter that plaza, the flame is a cold flame. Actually, that's the air conditioning cooling spray that is going on, and the spray pond. And that sort of invites you into this tunnel of landscape and the steps going up to the spine. But when you come here from this plaza, you have facing you the library. And again, this is a building of steps. And when you go up, you can sit there in contemplation. You can watch the sunrise and sunset, watch the beautiful hills around you. And in the evenings, it's full of people sitting out there taking in it's a social gathering space. And all of these buildings around this plaza are like these steps. So it's used very, very extensively. The library is one building that is open till midnight. It starts at 8 in the morning and it's open till midnight. So even when I go visit, you take the late flight, you land there and the library is still open, the cafe is still open out there, and there are students. So life is throbbing 24/7. Now, when you go into this space, the steps that you see bring in a lot of light. So this building has won several awards. In fact, the first award went to the contractor. And so I was very pleased that he did a wonderful job. And he got, he said, you'd give me a very difficult building to do an exposed concrete, but I have reaped a lot of rewards. He got a lot of jobs of doing that in Pune. And so this is what the inside looks like. It is not air conditioned in most parts. The main halls, etc., 3 stories high, as I'll show you, triple heights, are not air conditioned. And you don't use artificial lighting at all during the daytime. So this is the main reading hall as such. And as you can see from the reading hall, even though it's a very large building and this is a triple height space, you see outside all the time. You're seeing outside. And I think that's the beauty, that can you make buildings which don't, they give you a sense of security. They give you a sense of place, but they don't confine you. And I think for students, especially, their spirit should never be confined. So a lot of students come and spend time out here just because it's a nice place to hang out. And then this is again a reverse view, so you can see the skylights from top. In fact, we use a ventilation system out here just to extract the air. There is no air conditioning in this whole part that you see. There are some parts in it where there are meeting rooms and all where there is air conditioning. Otherwise, it's not air conditioned at all. And from here, you see the University Plaza. You see the cricket field, as I'll show you, and all these different heights. You see people moving back and forth. The plaza outside is something like this. Again, a plaza here means, in our kind of temperature and conditions, lots of trees. So we have lots of trees and seats, and it is used extensively for people to gather and use throughout the day. And you can see the library in the background. Next to the library on the other side is the Performing Arts Center. So the inside, of course, is one large hall, which is about 20 meters by 20 meters, used for all kinds of performances and experimental theater. But it opens up to this rainwater harvesting tank, and also where the water from the river is brought in and then pumped up. So this place is full all the time with water. And performances happen on the outdoor stage as well when there are concerts that take place. And I'm taking this picture from a cafe, another cafe, which looks into this place. So it is always sort of used by people around, and it'll give you an idea from this aerial shot. You can see the, oops. Yeah, okay. Well, anyway, I think, yes, that works. You can see the library out here with the steps. You can see the dining hall with the steps, and you can see even the performing arts with steps on top. So that's used as a theater on top also. And then you can see all the various roofs and the trees going in and the spine climbing up. So it gives you a sense of, in 15 years, the kind of landscape that has come up and has grown over time. This is the spine as it climbs up that 17 meters, as I was telling you. So there is a series of gateways into each building, and the gateways are essentially all the what you call utilities that are there. There are vending machines there, there are toilets, there are staircases, firefighting, electrical rooms, etc. And through that you pass, and then you come into a holding area from where you go into the classrooms. And again, you face gardens as you go along from that. And it's extensively used by everybody out here. And the whole spine that ends up towards this building, which was added only about a year ago, was completed a year ago. And this is the administration. Now, the administration is very interesting. There are 3 floors, out of which 2 floors are for the deans, the vice chancellor, the president of the university, and other administrative duties. Rest are for students, including the top floor. So over everybody sits this bridge. And this bridge, this is spanning about 24 meters. And this bridge out here has a student lounge and a coffee bar on top. And it is open 24/7. You can come in here anytime. It's a wonderful view of the people coming in and out, classes changing. And as you can see, people sort of parade through this. And this amphitheater is used also extensively in the evenings and for more formal occasions. Just to give you another view of the amphitheater. And the building curves on one side and it's straight on the other side. So the south side sort of curves and the north side opens up towards this thing, as you saw, if you recall the earlier slide. And then, of course, performances take place. I couldn't resist showing this with you. This is the kind of things that happens in front of that amphitheater. Early morning, I saw a class taking place out there, a dance class taking place on the end of the spine. And so that gives you a better idea of how that was happening. And at night time, again, you can see the top lit up and the rest closed down. And it is, again, used by the students. And then this is the spine, the first slide that you see on the right. You see the spine extending. And you see in the end, there's a 9-story tower. That's the only high-rise that is there in the entire campus. And that's for the postgraduate or what do you call executive education center. So there are very special rooms out there with some classes and things. And now the spine, which was about 120 meters, has extended to almost 400 meters. And you go through this various levels and various parts of the buildings. And as you can see, in the distance is the hill and the Symbiosis Institute on the other side. This spine ends up, that's the tower I was showing you out here. And that's the tower out here, and the spine sort of comes and ends out here. Now, you'll say, what a strange shape, but actually these are all residential areas, and the outlines of the boundary give of our, after we negotiated with the farmers, etc., and with the bylaws, you start getting these odd shapes and whatnot. And the first building was done, they said, we don't want our tower view blocked, and so this came up. So a lot of things, as I see in all these buildings, are circumstantial. Now, the question is, how do you hold on to your big idea and still allow these circumstantial things to, infect and change what you're doing? Then the other one is that there is this road that comes through, and we have left the floor down below here, which opens up to a lake in the distance out here. So this lake, and there's a temple out there which gets framed by it, cuts open. So all these various things, as I said, are based on circumstances. The idea was to make, of course, a space for students to gather, classrooms, a gateway in the same sense as the other places, and a dining hall, and then the residential areas, reception, etc., tying it up, and the residential tower. And again, this is again also a residential area. And on top, this thing that you see coming out here, this block, is the part that has a student lounge again out there. This is what a typical classroom looks like at Flame. This is one of the newer ones. This is actually meant for the executive education. This was taken when the executive education program was to begin this summer, but these are the normal students that are using it at the moment. And as you can see, all these classrooms have a lot of natural light. They have a lot of natural ventilation. You can actually use these classrooms without air conditioning, though it does have air conditioning in it. So all of these out here can open up. All of these can open up, and if necessary. So I believe that, if the lecture is boring, the student should be able to look out and enjoy life rather than just look at the lecturer who's, droning on and on. The dining areas in this for the Executive Education Center. And then there is a small private dining area out here, as you can see, which sits enclosed in this stone jali and a steel structure. So that private meetings can also take place. This is the spine that has extended and it goes back. And of course, we also like doing these kinds of stylized drawings to show what the buildings could look like. And I think the whole idea of art and architecture is tied up together by indulging in many these things, not just one way of looking at things. The last building that I'll show you on the Flame campus is which is still under construction, not completed, is the sports center. It's a very large sports center, a track with a football field for international tournaments. And you can see the lake in the distance out here. You can see the lake that is there. And that's the edge of our site. That's the edge of our site across that you see. Now, this building, though, it looks very large, spread out, and on one side very low. Inside is huge. This is, again, another 24-meter span in concrete. The roof is a green roof, which is still to be done. And you can see very large spans, the same basic system of proportioning, the same system of structure, though in this case, the column sizes, instead of being 75 centimeters deep, are now 150 centimeters deep. And the kinds of depths of beams, etc., change out here, but you get a sense of the space. And this side opens up to the lake. And of course, it also is, the depth of the column is also used as a sun breaker to break down the direct light coming in the western sun. So, as I said, we had used a system of portals, essentially. So you can see that you have this system of portals, which is essentially a C-shaped thing like this, which is folded and connected. And you can get all kinds of shapes, forms, spans using the same basic system. And the housing part of it is done in compressed earth block made out of the soil out there. And this was a machine from South Africa that the clients bought, and that's the thing that's taking place out here. And then these portals, as I said, are used in various ways. And this is one place it shows that what is the system, and they just stand to give a screen out there. The next one, next project that I'm going to show, and I think I'm going to run out of time, so I'm going to show you very fast, I think, is what we call the Hawa Mahal. This is in Lavard near Ahmedabad. It was started as a police training academy. And it was for people, who will go through this. It's, the university is functioning now. It's functioning from the campus. And our client at that point wanted the forts of Rajasthan. So first he wanted us to build a fort wall to enclose the whole place, about 4.5 kilometers. So we did a precast wall. And out of that, some of these elements, we said, we'll use them out of GRC. And these were made later on for the buildings. And we said, like Hawa Mahal, since you're not having air conditioning and all, well, then he went. And the next one came. And he said, this is going to be a full-fledged university. We are going to have postgraduate courses. We need air conditioning. So the buildings became air conditioned. So over the time that it started to now, it has kept on adapting to various change in programmatic things. This is what happens over time in any such campus project, especially government projects where directors and vice chancellors come and go. The land is very interesting. It's Kotar land. It is land which is changing every monsoon. It erodes. These are all erosions, as you can see. Complete erosions And there are drops of 8 to 9 meters down. Now, how do you build in a place like this? The amount of land available is very, very nominal. How do you build in this? Plus, now we have very stringent these things that you have to reach, all your water, you have to take care of it yourself. And if you borrow water from underground sources from these things, then you will have to recharge 200 times that as per the EIA guidelines. So these are the kinds of situations that one has to take up as a challenge and adapt from that. This shows you how the water flows from the fields around and comes in, and then these are the water bodies. There are some existing check dams and some new check dams that we are adding onto this to collect water for recharging, and one or two which are permanent water bodies. So if you see, this one is actually a permanent water body, the rest are recharge tanks. And the river actually is always dry, except in the monsoon. Sometimes you get a little bit of water out here. And these are the ravines that cut through it. So this was the master plan that we worked on, that there would be clusters of places because the land was divided up in such a way. So there was the academic block, then there was the housing, then student housing, faculty housing, and future student housing. And then these lakes would be made, etc. And these are you can see from the contours how steep and how difficult this is. This is the existing village of Lava. And this is the wall that the client wanted us to do. And then there are gates to that wall, which connects up to this future land, which also is theirs actually, but they've not been able to use it so far. And so this is how this thing happened. So rainfall is minimal. There is all these tanks. These are various clusters out there. And then they had things like a parade ground that they needed, around which then sports facilities because of the nature of the things. Then they needed training areas, etc. So we started. Now, of course, it is expanding, and the next phase is almost adding another 12 schools to the existing 5 schools of studies that are already there in this campus. Now, all these campuses, this gives you an aerial shot of the whole thing. So that's our main gate out here. And then the main administration building, etc. And then the cluster for residential areas on the far side out here. And then you can see the kind of land that is there. This is a recharge lake out here. This is the permanent one under construction. These were taken some time ago. This is the permanent one. Again, some more views, and this is what the thing looks like. So this precast system that we worked out has been used extensively as a fenestration to control sunlight and to control water ingress into it. And this becomes the facade element, as well as in this case, a porch element. And it's quite a beautiful porch with light filtering through it, with these light elements sort of floating like birds hanging out there. And you get a filtered light. And this whole space can be used, the roofs can be used again, even for informal gatherings and get-togethers overlooking the parade ground. That's the parade ground and the buildings around that. Some of the courtyards of the learning areas and the passages through that. As I said, this has just been completed, so the landscape is still to pick up. Plantation is still carrying on, and this monsoon, hopefully, there'll be a lot more. And then the kind of filtered light that you get inside, and the views that you get through those openings that are there, these precast elements. And this, you see the housing in the distance from the academic block across the lake. You can't see the lake, but I'll show you the lake shortly. You see all the facades of the housing are also precast, done and lifted up and put in place, and then the windows attached to it. So the construction system was worked out in such a way. And that gives you the idea of the lake in between and the lake in last monsoon. Again, some more views within the housing. And just to show you the kind of land one is dealing with. And then I come to celebrating lakes, I am Udaipur. And of course, again, the land is like this. I mean, this is not just ravine, there are hills and there are valleys, and there is no water whatsoever. So, but the beauty of this place is that one is that in the monsoon, all of Udaipur becomes this green. And so if you start looking at rainfall patterns, etc., you start saying that, how do I collect water? And so we did this topographical analysis to show where the water flows. And we chose to site our things along this major watercourse, which joins a major watercourse that connects up to this. And the land is divided up into two parts, the western campus and the eastern campus. And we are building on the western campus in phase 1. And what we did was that watercourse, we divided up by a plaza, and we allow the overflow of water to go from underground, but the top sort of fills up out here. It's a very deep lake. And along that, all the academic blocks are put up. And so from the two hills, this plaza is the connector on the ground, and then the blocks are connected. And in the sky, 6 stories up in the air, we have a library and a bazaar with conveniences and restaurants and cafes and gyms, etc., and various facilities connecting the two sides and joining an amphitheater. And the student housing comes on one side and the faculty housing comes on one side. And this is the part that sort of connects the two together and also connects at the ground level up here. And then various classrooms, etc., offices, etc., happen within this. Very much like a Rajasthani palace as such, one would say. And then our water supply is assured because of this first lake, which is lined. Then it goes into the second lake on the other side. And so this is the campus, that this thing that I was showing you, the academic block, and the connection is here, the plaza is here, and the lake is here. And the second lake is out here. And then there are lakes lower down out here, and there is 2 more lakes out here, using the natural contours of the land. That's a model that shows you, this is the faculty and staff housing on this hill. This is the student housing on this hill and future expansion, and then the main academic core out here and the lakes. So this is what it looks like. This is a drone picture taken about a couple of months ago. The lake is almost, because here it is the soil is all rock, and it is fissured rock. So we have to line up this particular lake to hold the water. Otherwise, you can't do this. And so the lining is done through a membrane, and then there is this thing on top of it, a protective layer on top of it. And so this, you can see this lake, and there is a walkway. And even the public is allowed to walk around and use the lake in the evenings or in the daytime. And the rest of the campus is kind of set back so that you don't actually disturb anything in the campus, and it's secure. And this is what the plaza in between that place is, again, as I said, and the bridge of the library cutting across it. Some more views, a view of the classroom, a view of the plaza, and some of the rooftops. And this is the faculty housing on one side. And as you can see, very much like the cities that are there, made out of local stone, quarried from close by, it's built up of the local stone here. And that's a complete this thing of showing you what happens during the monsoon when everything starts growing. That's the campus spread out. This amphitheater is also now almost complete out here. And as you enter this bazaar from here and open up, it cuts across to the dining hall and makes a link. The 2 water tanks also make another link between this. And this land in between is not ours. So the land is a very odd shaped land, and we have to sort of work with it. And there is a very big ravine that cuts across our site, and the rest of the site is on the other side. And the 4th campus, which I think is the most significant campus, is the Nalanda University. It's also one of the largest campuses under construction. This, of course, you must be all familiar with. The very famous Stupa of Sariputta, or the ruins of Nalanda Mahavihara that you see, and the excavations that have taken place. And this 500 meters of excavation that has taken place. On one side are the viharas or the various residential areas, and each one was a school of thought. So the guru would be there staying with the students, would actually have his disciples staying in that vihara. And they were funded by different kings and different places and different principalities. On the other side were the temples. Now, what is very interesting about this whole plan, this spine, is the fact that this 500 meters was used as a walkway, and very often discussions would take place. And what's very interesting is that the discussions would be between student and teacher as co-learners, walking side by side, not facing each other, but talking side by side. Try it, walk side by side and talk. You'll actually talk a lot of things at random, but you also get your point across much better because you're not confronting each other. And I think that's something to learn from the fact that classrooms is only one part of your learning experience. The other is where you meet and where you walk together. This is our site. Again, a rural site, about 3 kilometers outside Rajgir town, a population of about 30,000 in the town, and we have 5 villages almost butting us. Another one here, and there's a lower one here somewhere. So those are the 5 villages that are there, and our walls go across like this. There's a railway line on this side, goes through. There's a road that's proposed that supposed to cut through, and land is flat. So unlike other places where you have to collect water because it rains only once in 3 months, I mean, in those 3 months only you get rain once in a year. Here, when it rains quite heavily, and you get water collecting into these places. And these were pathways connected the various villages. And so we came out with a very interesting idea that how do we connect the water, keep the pathways, allow gates to allow people access through this. Very important thing, our backdrop is the Rajgir Hills. The Rajgir Hills are very, very well known in both Buddhism and Jainism, because this is where the Mahavir came and meditated and the Buddha came and meditated. Both these, it's very, very holy. And even for the 6th, one of the gurus came here. And so you can see this stretching in the backdrop of our campus, that this is sacred land. How do you remind every student who comes here that this is a sacred land, and where you come to is a special place, it's not any place. So the master plan happened in that context. We said, if we connect, and this was an international competition, we had several very well-known international architects competing against us. We decided to connect these 2 water bodies by a larger water body here and place all our things, the common facilities, the academic blocks, etc., in the central zone, and then have housing for faculty and staff and housing for students on the 2 sides to share these common facilities. So this is how the sketches, you can see March 23rd, 13, this is when the competition was going on. We started. And then the major issue was, how do we collect water and hold it for a year and a half? This is one of the largest net zero campuses in the world. And so water, waste, and energy, all 3 have to be done independently of the natural grid or of natural other sources. And we cannot do bore wells either. Even though the bore well is very easy to do out here, we didn't want to borrow any water because it was all agricultural land around us. So we made this whole thing of capturing rainwater, and also as a protective measure against floods, that these holding ponds become very useful. And the traditional system of what they call pine system, ahar and pine system, which is used in agriculture, is what sort of laces this thing together of wetlands and water bodies. The other one was, how do you locate things? So 455 acres, how do you make a walkable campus? And so we said that if you take the heart of these lakes, the one that we're proposing from that, and within 10 minutes, you should be able to reach the furthest point. So this is how we decided on locating our things. And the rest of the campus, almost 60% is completely free of any building. There's going to be experimental agriculture, because one of the first schools that started was the School of Environment and Ecology. to help farmers, to help people in the local areas of how you could use this place as a experimental this thing to, and then they would walk across from one this thing to the other. They would see these farms and actually use this information that is available in this various outreach centers, etc. So this is how the master plan was done. Obviously, what you're seeing is a completed thing. It's gone through many, many changes, and it is now under construction. We give you just some figures out here. One of the other things that we looked at is that we were making these lakes. This is clay soil. It makes some of the best bricks in the country, burnt bricks. But we didn't want to burn anything and cause an ecological damage. So we are using a mix of compressed earth block, which is without any firing. And for the plinths, etc., we are using burnt brick from the local area. And we are using our own soil, which we are excavating from the lakes and ponds, and that is being used to make this. Both main contractors, one for the housing, one for the non-residential areas, have set up plants. They manufacture anything between 7 to 10,000 bricks a day of blocks of compressed earth block. These have been tested. Various these things were done, and I'll come to that. This was tested here even before the project began. It's an earthquake zone 4. So we made this huge 19-ton pile of bricks, fixed it to a wall to see, and did a shake test for it at Nirma University. You can see the shake table out here. It was hit and everything was monitored. The contractors who are going to do the project were called to see this so that they don't make excuses that this can't be done. And then, of course, the university engineer, as well as other officials from the university and independent observers were called in. And so that's how this was done. This is what the bricks we are using. And the way we were using it is that if you go to the ruins, you see this stepping back, serrated edges of the brickwork. And that started the whole idea of how we would make this construction of the whole thing. And the construction is essentially of 4 elements. These walls, which we call service walls, sometimes they have punctures for gateways. We have towers that have our DVAP system on it, climate towers that supply air conditioning to the buildings, and then the learning towers where the various classrooms are there. So you have a smaller, bigger, and a bigger classroom. Now, why did this all come about? I think some of it comes about because we wanted an enclosure of the place, and we didn't want sort of corridors, but large spaces where the landscape and covered spaces intermingle. So the edge condition, what we call the service walls and gates, have variations. The basic construction system is the same, but the top changes all the time to allow views and light and breeze from various points. So these are the service walls. So you can see out here AHU rooms, toilets, staircases, vestibules, etc. And they are not continuous, but they're cut so that the light and breeze comes through. Now, inside, you get the classrooms like this. Now, what's very interesting is that when you do this, you also start getting a figure ground, which is like a stupa in reverse, or a stupa in the negative space worked out like that, which is also the Buddha and meditation, as you know. And that has become stylized and rounded over time. So this is how it started. Now it does something very important. It helps us to make our energy use very, very low. If the outside temperature in the city is 45 degrees, inside in the campus, it's at least 3 degrees cooler because of the landscaping. And then within that, in the shaded areas, it goes down to about 32 degrees Celsius. And so you have to cool only from 32 to 24 in the classroom. That means the energy you're using, and remember that 60% of our energy is used to make comfort conditions, reduces drastically. So therefore, generating electricity for us then becomes a simpler matter. This is a model that shows you how these various openings that I was talking about in the service walls happen and allow. And then these are the structures in between. And here's a view of what it may look like. And this is what it is actually looking like now. So the lakes have been formed, and every monsoon they fill up. There is no lining out here because it's clayey soil. And the bricks that you can see, the burnt brick is here in the plinths and some parts going up here. And the rest of it is all compressed earth block. And it's weathered several monsoons already during construction. These are those chhatris with the air conditioning system, is these big towers like water tanks, which give you shade and give you these volumes in between. And you can see them under construction. These are in exposed concrete. And then smaller scale spaces where the classrooms, where the various offices and things are. With saying here, V.R. Shah is the structural consultant, and he has worked extensively with us for all the earthquake, as well as working out the block work that we have done. And you can see some of the construction and the quality of construction. So different parts as they're being completed. Now the housing is all, those are RCC structures, but the housing is all load-bearing compressed earth block and brick. And you can see that is almost 60% of the construction. And it's very dense, but also very well ventilated in between to make clusters and courts. And so it gives you a view from the model and then some of the actual construction that's taking place out there. And you can see again the quality of how things are turning out with the block as well as the brick. And lastly, I come to our net zero strategy. And the idea was that how do we shake hands with all the villages around? You know, in the ancient texts, it was written 200 villages used to contribute the required amount of provisions for 3,000 monks and students. We said, can we reverse this? Can Nalanda University actually shake hands instead of them supplying things as a Jagir? Can we reverse it by helping them? And so we looked at a resource cycle, a comprehensive view of what a net zero campus could be. So whether it is supplying food, helping in collection of rainwater, but also looking at community involvement for seeds and water and research, but also looking at organic waste, biofuel, electricity, or sharing biogas. And so, as I was telling you, what our whole strategy of generating electricity is using a resilient system where you can use animal waste, human waste, forestry waste, agriculture waste, and a combination of PV panels, etc., to feed and run our external combustion engines. And from that, use that heat to also take out the humidity from the air and cut down our cooling loads. And so therefore, our cooling system actually requires a lot less electricity than they would normally do. And if this becomes successful, well, one of the things that we did was that raw material that is required on a peak day of organic waste, cow manure, we did a survey around 4 kilometers of this, which is going to be outsourced eventually. Chicken manure, human manure, etc., what is available. And gas would be given from these to us, from this agency, who would be allowed to set up a plant on our site. And so if you look at what is in the 4 kilometer radius, we actually will be we can produce more electricity than we are going to consume. So we are saying here's an alternative way of looking at energy needs, which could be used, because we are a nation of cattle owners. So instead of batteries and storage and all of that, we are saying use cow tech instead of high tech. Digesters don't need any taking care. Owners of their digesters are taking care, and only their waste is being used. And so we are quarter of the entire world's population of cows is here. So should we be using this as a resource? So with that, I come to the last, this thing of where our water journey began. This was the same time as in 2004 that we started working on Flame, and we were approached by the Gujarat Disaster Management Authority to plan out a memorial for the earthquake victims of the 2001 earthquake. And so when they said plant a tree for each victim, and our present PM at that time, the CM, said that we should plant a tree for each victim, We found out there were almost 14,000 victims, 13,805 victims. And it finished, and the idea was that how do you give birth to a forest, a naturally diverse ecosystem? And so the site that we eventually got, it started from a different site 6 kilometers away. Eventually it came to the Bhujio Dungar and the area around that, and became from 150 acres to 470 acres. And that's where the memorial, the first phase of the memorial is being done. This is where the first phase of the memorial is being done. The other phases will happen around here with many other amenities. And this is what Bhuj is like normally. And this is what Bhuj is like in the monsoon. So we said, how do we collect water? So we started working out how do we collect water from the hill that we are located. And we traced every stream of water that flows during the monsoon, or every drop of water. Now, the drop of water is important not only for water, but it also picks up soil and it picks up nutrients. And if you understand this water cycle, then your plants can survive. They don't require any maintenance except for the initial 2 or 3 years when you plant them first. So after that, the monsoons will start keeping them. And it is essentially seeding a forest. And instead of doing one reservoir or large dam, which costs a lot more and can't be phased out, we did this whole series of 93 reservoirs that now there are 81 reservoirs that we proposed of different sizes. And this is how they're located in those flow of waters that are coming there. And they're made out of gabions. So the water comes in, soaks into this and recharges the soil. We don't hold the water. So in the monsoon, the water fills up, as you can see. And then slowly the landscape covers these steps that are coming up out there. These are older pictures. Hopefully in the next couple of years, this place will become completely clean. And these are some of the views from there. And some water remains permanently, the rest of it soaks into the earth. So in the monsoon, the water can fill up till here. And then slowly it recharges. And then this part of the water is permanent. And this is how the place looks like. Those gateways that you see are like the paliyas that are traditional ways to commemorate heroes who passed away. The nameplates of the people will be put inside. This is some of a view at night time. And the park is informally already being used. One part of it is what we call the sun point, where there is a ring 60 meters up in the air. And remember, this is earthquake zone 5. Everything is moving. And it marks the position of the moon on the top and the equinox solstice on the bottom for the sun. So you can see how the sun cuts through it. It's like Jantar Mantar. And it goes across like this. And you see spectacular views of the surrounding area, including Bhuj city from here. And on it are symbols that look at what the people, the pastoral background of fishing, of cattle rearing, the forests, and of course, the oldest temple why Bhuj gets, the Bhujio Dungar gets his name is Bhujang Dev, and Bhujang Dev is the of the Shiva temple or Nag Devta. So therefore, the symbols are there carved into this ring that is sitting around. And that's what it looks like. So with that, I think I will end my talk. I'll be willing to answer any questions that you may have.
Rajeev, Kathpalia, wonderful. There was so much to see, so much to learn. And there are many questions. So Yash, please follow up with the questions. Yash, please go ahead.
Yeah, so now I will take up one by one question. So the very first question is, what are the different challenges you faced during such a marvelous campus development? Because such large scale projects cannot be completed without any challenges. How have you resolved those challenges?
Well, challenges are continuous. No, there is
multiple
challenges to start with, not just the design part, but to manage things over an extended period of time. And still, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I can hear you.
is to, first of all, hold course. It's like you're riding a ship. You're on the sea. You are the captain of a ship, and you have to go from one place to the other. And in between, there will be storms. There will be all kinds of things. So I'll give you an analogy of that. Things happen in between. Ministers change, chief ministers change, prime ministers change. Vice chancellors change. All of this happens along the way, and of course, the staff changes, the engineers change. I've gone through for the Smriti One project. I think I'm on my third chief minister now, and seventh secretary in charge, and so many engineers that have gone through, including the secretary engineer. So I think the challenge is really to hold that. Also, the other thing you have to remember is that all the people in your office are also changing. Not all of them are through the whole process. When you talk about 15 years, in 15 years, a lot of people have changed. So how do you keep this idea going all the time? And you are let's say, the only continuous thing. Maybe if you're lucky, one or two people may be there through this period. And I have been lucky that some of my students who are now part or associates in the firm have been there. So they have sort of had a continuity of ideas from students to actual practice. So I look at that as one of the major challenges of our people, managing people through these long duration projects. Then there are challenges, of course, about how do you deal with contractors in government contracts? How do you make their use of standardized work, making sure that they take all shortcuts? How do you even make them do compressor blocks? So what kind of tender document do you make? To make that tender document, how do you convince all the advisors from the CPWD that this is an integral part of the project? And if you don't do this, then you will be harming the project. You will not get your net zero rating as such. So all of these, or to make these water bodies, they'll say, well, we have put in so much money, but then you say that, okay, you get to a cost-benefit analysis. And I think all these other things have become, we have learned a lot along that way. How do you present things so that everybody buys into the project? And I think that is one of the major challenges that I think is there. Then the design part is one part of it.
Yeah. So the next two questions are interrelated. It mentions that as the campuses grow over a period of time, how is the continued project duration?
How's the continuity? Hello?
Yeah, continuity.
The continuity.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
I think if you are lucky, you will be there. If you are not lucky, you set up such a precedent that anybody else who comes in will be forced to contend with that precedent. I don't say they have to follow it. They have to contend with that precedent. So that so far we've been very lucky that we have done enough work in the first phase itself to set up a very strong precedent. And so anybody else who comes in will be quite challenged to go not follow the principles. Also, we make a master plan document which sets out why these precedents have been set up, so that university or institute has that to pass on to whoever else comes in later on and comes in this thing, that they have a document to work with. Now, how much they want to steer it, at least it gives them a starting point. They may not want to follow it. It's also possible. But in most cases, because so many things are tied up to it and those ideas are so well entrenched, they want the other person to also follow it. The language may change. The materials will change because as time goes by, construction techniques, technology, all of these will change, and that's fine. But the basic core has already been established. And I think that's how cities are made. If the core is strong, then the rest can be anything. It doesn't matter. And there can be many new examples. Learn from them.
Yeah. So the next question we have is from Charanjit Shah. He have asked wonderful net zero settlements and is what is very much required. How can this reach to new generation and practicing architects who could be more aware about such sustainable smart projects? Can you explain the integrated approach and design process?
Well, I just explained that in the one.
Too long answers.
But I think there are fundamental issues here which you need to consider for anything. It's not about net zero or this thing. If you look at our traditional settlements, a village is placed where there is a talavadi is made out of what? In Gujarat especially, if you look at Gujarat as an example, they will make a bund for where the water flow is there, where the water collects in the monsoon. A bund is made and the village comes after the bund. And the common space or the public spaces, the chopper or the chopal will be there, the tree will be there, the mandir will be there. And that's how every village in Gujarat is, because there are not many perennial rivers, they're mostly seasonal rivers. So if you're not next to a water source, you make tanks, you make water bodies, lakes. And then you will make tanks to collect for drinking water, and you will make lakes for agriculture and your animals, etc. So how do you segregate things? And I think if you look at all these examples, you find that it's a very, very sensible, systematic approach. All you have to do is study your past and you will get the future. So as I see it, the integrated approach is from that. And when you excavate the tank, you will take out mud. Can you use the mud to make your houses? So these are very obvious things. They're not like anything that we have invented. We are only looking at the past and carrying these ideas from before. Technology has improved. Yes, techniques have improved. Nobody has done compressed earth block at the scale that we are doing in Nalanda today anywhere in the world. So the question is that if that is the case, you have to get it tested, approved through various government agencies. You have to do independent testing. That's where knowledge comes in, and that knowledge is freely available. You can share. It's shared. You can ask Nirma University to give you whatever has been done.
Yeah. So now we'll take last 3 questions. So the first one of them is, most of the campuses you are doing a low rise, high density, which is much like our old cities. But with the land parcels decreasing in the city, do you think a campus can still be decentralized and function from multiple land parcels within the city?
Yes, absolutely. I don't think there is only one way to do things. I think you have to face the challenges of today. That is, land is very valuable. If you want to build anything in the land, can it be decentralized? Can there be? If you look at all of Boston or Oxford or Cambridge, there are different parts of the campus all over the city. They're not in like one large campus. Initially, there were some parts were like that. They were actually seminaries. They were not campuses as such. They were seminaries for priests. But then over time, what has happened is that new laboratories come up, a new library comes up, new classrooms have to be put up, and they're in some part of the city. And you connect them. And I think the cities will be richer for that. I don't see a problem with that at all.
Yeah. So the next question is from Mr. Vatsal Patel. He is asking that how do you decide time limit for such projects, and how do you keep the budget on track?
My budget or the university's budget?
COVID-19 time.
So, like every university, especially most of our universities are government universities, there are specific budgets. They have to go through various committees. They have to get sanctions, and they are done by committees of various people. So we have to go through that process. As I said, that has been one of the challenges of how do you convince them of various things, and the university's requirements with time. But they also have procedures in place which you follow. The CPWD has procedures where, they cost things in a certain way. They put aside money for certain things. So they're also clearer over time. It's not like that they're incompetent people. They're very competent people. So I'm saying that's a learning process. The second thing is that our own budget, sometimes we don't, if you start counting every day, where is the money going to come from, you never design anything. I think it is, you say, okay, let's hope for the best, and are your ideas getting realized? And if they're getting realized, I'm sure if you're doing the right thing, you'll get rewarded for it. I don't worry too much about our budgets. Beyond a point, you make do with what you have. But I think it's important that what you started, I never thought that I'd be spending, I had a public meeting in Bhuj one time, and I said, when I started this project 15 years ago, I had black hair. And now I have gray hair. And maybe by the time it finishes, I may not have no hair at all. So it is things like this that you go through, and yet you carry on because you see things happening. You see major changes taking place. And I think it is our duty to, carry on to bring in new ideas. Otherwise, how will the profession develop and change?
Yeah. And so one last question by very senior architect Girish Mistry. So here's a very nice question for you. Are you planning a publication on campus designing?
I'd love to. I think it's about time one could do it. So maybe we will do that. That has been at the back of our mind for a long time, but it hasn't happened. We have books on each campus, but not put together in a comparative. And I think that we could do. And share also the experiences that go through it. So thank you. I think that's...
Yeah. So now I will request architect Pravin Patel to deliver concluding remarks, followed by Sri Apurva Thakur. She can deliver the vote of thanks.
Rajeev, that was wonderful. What Girish bhai said, I was going to ask the same question. That for each project, you should prepare a report, how it started, how it ended, which can be used by many students. You can put in the libraries of the colleges, or you can share online, so that all the practicing architects and the students can learn so many things from that. Even today, within more than 1 hour, we learned so many things. So if they are kept in the books, they will be very useful for the students. And the variety of things we have done in various projects, that is because of the location, the climate, the contours, especially Udaipur, because I have seen that site before you started the construction. I was shocked to see that is so hilly. I was thinking how an architect will design here, but still you have done it. Very good job. Thank you. And I think there are no other questions, so Apurva can... please.
First part of it, if I may interrupt you for a minute.
No problem.
Some of the campus things have been documented and they are available at the Vastu Foundation as small booklets. They're very, very affordable, very cheap. Anybody can buy them. They're available.
But I think all the colleges know about it, so they can put there in the libraries. Anyway, thank you.
All of you can help us with that. We'd be happy to participate.
Okay, thank you so much. And
very much.
Apurva?
Yes.
Yeah, over to you, Apurva.
Yeah, thank you, Pravin bhai, and great presentation by Rajeev bhai. Thank you very much. Okay, before I deliver my vote of thanks, I would like to salute all the coronavirus first. I would like to take this opportunity to thank architect Sri Rajeev Kathpalia for giving his time, thoughts, and his ideas for today's webinar on the ideal city campus design. I am also very much thankful to President Sri K.C. Patel, Moderator Sri Pravin bhai, and of course Yash for organizing this wonderful webinar today. I'm also very much thankful to all the attendants who spared the time today. And once again, thanks all of you on behalf of GICA. Thank you very much for the grand success of this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you. Looking forward to hear more and more like this. Thank you once again, everyone who attended this.
Yeah.
Thank you, Apurva.
Thank you, everyone. So we conclude this session.
Thank you, yes. Thank you, K.C. Patel. And of course, Rajeev Kathpalia. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajeev ji. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajeev sir. Thank you.